It's the most horrific time of the year, right? You have now a little over 80 hours left to file your tax return with the IRS ahead of Monday's midnight deadline. It's actually been a record-breaking first half of the 2022 fiscal year for the federal government. From October to March, the government collected $2.12 trillion in total taxes. That is the first time federal tax collections have exceeded $2 trillion in the first half of a fiscal year. Record aside, the federal government also spent up a storm, $2.79 trillion in that same time frame. That is the second highest spending ever in the first half of a fiscal year, leaving a deficit of $668 billion. The record, by the way, for those who are interested, actually happened in 2021, of course, COVID and all of that spending. But what does this mean for tax filers and the overall picture about the economy and what you can glean from that? Joining me now with his insight from inside the business is the CEO of the third largest paid tax preparer in the country, Liberty Tax's Brent Turner. How nice of you to take time out on your busiest time. I know it's been insane, Brett. But right off the bat, give me a sense of how returns are coming in, what they're showing, and what our viewers can glean about the state of the economy.
Yeah, so it seems like this season is a little different than the last couple, obviously, for many reasons, not just the pandemic, but every tax season seems to have some nuance to it. But this year, it seems like people are either planning to file late or just don't understand that the filing deadline is April 18th, as opposed to last year with COVID limitations. It was May 15th, and the year before that it was July 15th. And right now, 60 million individual returns still have not been filed. So over a third of the expected individual returns, it's 160 million expected individual returns that have not been filed yet.
And what about the number of returns where people owe versus the cash back that they're going to get?
Yeah, that's a dramatic increase so far this year. We've seen 38% increase in returns that have what we call a balance due instead of a refund.
And what do you glean from that? Is it because, the government is socking us for more, or is it because people are actually back to work, making money, and doing better?
Yeah, it's a combination of many things, but I think it's mostly due to more people being back at work. The unemployment level is quite low. And so I think there's more people earning revenue this year, or earning this year, rather than getting just stimulus funds from last season.
Yeah, well, it is interesting to see that tax revenues are up. And in fact, if you look at March specifically, here are the numbers. And I want our viewers to really listen here. The government posted a $193 billion budget deficit for the month of March, but that's less than a third of the $660 billion gap a year earlier. Do you predict the trend continuing over the course of the second half of the year if people are, finally getting on the ball and paying their taxes?
Well, what's interesting is there's the extensions that were filed as of last Friday are up 229% over last year. Okay. So even though they're filing their extension, they're supposed to be paying their estimated tax due at the time they file the extension, but in many cases they don't. And what you'll see is a much larger revenue happening in the second half of the year this year, just because of those extensions being filed.
Let's talk about the backlog at the IRS. Something totally weird happened to me. I paid my taxes last year, and I got my whatever refund that I got. I ended up having to owe, but I did get one refund from one tiny little part of taxes. And then I get a notice from the IRS saying, we never received your return and you owe a lot of money. And I was like, no, I did send it in. You have a lot of confusion at the IRS, do you not, at this point?
Yeah, there's a lot of backlog returns. There's still something like 5 million returns from last season that have not been processed. There's still many refunds that are due that have not been issued. By the way, I have somebody that can help you with your problem if you still have an issue with the IRS. But there's still lots of work to be done over there at the IRS that, frankly, they're just understaffed.
I'm sure that you guys are all working hard, and every member of your staff is at this moment hopefully watching you for at least a quick break. Brent Turner, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.